do your homework at a good time and like balance your like studies and also like social time like is really important, and I just say like time management is key and organization.
Yeah, just like she was saying, you're just going from a totally different like mindset kind of, because school, I don't even know how many hours per week high school is. It's like a full-time job. But at college it's only like 15 hours a week, so you kind of just have like a lot more free time. But then it's also more work kind of per class. But yeah, it's really just kind of like, I always like make sure that I keep a planner and I write down like every day like what I have to do for each class, like on what day and what day I work on which assignments, and I just try to keep it as organized as possible. Like I find it really helpful to write it out because I can't just remember everything. In high school I never used the planner, I remembered all my assignments and I cannot do that anymore. So I definitely recommend like writing things down if that helps you.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I never used to use a planner, and then I got to college, and now I keep a spreadsheet on my computer of all my assignments, where they are, which is something that's super important because in high school I think a lot of things are in like one centralized location. In college you have stuff on Blackboard, you have stuff on Pearson, you have stuff on your teacher's own custom website, so it's super important that you know where everything is. Because I remember the first semester, I definitely like was a little confused just because there's like 6 different websites I was trying to juggle. So having a planner, rewrite that down too, like so you know where everything is going is super important.
I'll just add too, it's okay if you struggle with the transition, but just remember there are resources out there to help you. So there are free tutoring in all of the subjects Fordham offers. There's the writing center for your papers. Also, like, don't forget to go to your professors too. Like, they are the best ones to help you. They have office hours every week. Like, make sure to reach out to them if those office hours don't work for you. Your RAs are there for you too. So there are resources. It's okay to like struggle through the transition. I know I did a bit, but just make sure you're reaching out for help and not just like letting it get worse and worse.
That was my next question, is resources. If you're struggling in classes, or if you just want to like improve things like your writing. So I didn't know if anyone else wanted to touch on some of those resources like office hours, the writing center, anything else people wanted to touch on there?
Yeah, another thing that I'll mention is I know all Fordham College Rose Hill students, with the exception of some science students, have to take a modern language. And as an Italian major, something that I started the same way. Like in the entry level. There's resources, there's tutoring in every modern language weekly, usually in Faber Hall, which is just where the modern language department is. But I know a lot of students have trouble with their language classes because it isn't something they necessarily chose to take. But there are student tutors there that are super helpful, as well as obviously like professors.
I started off as an environmental science major before I switched to political science, and if anyone is a science major like biology, chemistry, pre-med, I think the Science Integrated Learning Community is one of the better resources that you can join. There's tutors that are directly upstairs that are open. I know last year was a little bit different because of COVID, but are open I think pretty much whatever time that you can schedule them. They're there most of the day. And it's super helpful because say it's the day before a test and there's like one topic that you're like, oh my god, I have no idea what I'm doing. There's someone that's like literally right in your building that can help you with that.
Thank you guys. Someone asked, when do we get our student IDs? I believe that is the first day of orientation, so that Sunday of move-in is when we'll get your physical ID. But make sure to submit any other questions that you might have that are more specific or that we'd like to hear from. But kind of going off on like study things and places like that, what are some of the best places on campus to study?
I always liked, in all of the dorms there is like lounges like on each floor I think, and I always liked studying in the lounges in my dorm. Like I lived 2 floors down, and it was just like, the building I lived in was Mosher. I don't know if you picked it out, and someone pointed out any of the tours, but the way it worked, it was like every other floor was like a quiet study floor, and then it was like social for the other 2, and I lived on the quiet floor, so like I found it really easy to just go in there and like put headphones in and kind of just focus, because I know it can be hard to do that with like in your room with like your roommate right in there. At least I always found it hard, so that's where I can kind of just like zone in and do my work. And now that I live off campus, I find going to the library just kind of gets that same vibe.
Yeah, I was gonna say my favorite place is the library. You can reserve rooms in the library, so I always like to grab a group of friends to go with me. And then, yeah, it's just nice and quiet. You can like choose to study alone or in a group.
Yeah, I also really like going into empty classrooms. I know this year because of COVID, there were a lot of open classrooms for people to do their online classes, but you're also welcome to go in there to study. And another place, this is kind of like a cheating answer because I haven't used it yet, but there's a new space in the basement of the library that is absolutely gorgeous. It's called like the Light Center, and it has like a bunch of new computers with a bunch of new like programs on it, and a bunch of tables with chairs where you could study. And that's not as quiet as like the regular library because it is in its own section. Sorry. So I definitely recommend checking that out.
So last year was my first year at Fordham. I'm a rising sophomore, so obviously I was taking a lot of classes online. It was really easy to get dorm fatigue, where I was sitting in my dorm staring at my wall for hours taking classes. So one of the better things I had to do was go outside. There's some tables outside of Kniffy House over there that are usually pretty empty, and weather permitting, I would go there like all the time. And towards the end of the year, I would also, if it got like later at night and I was studying for finals or midterms, I'd actually come here to Edwards Parade and we had some chairs laid out, and it was like 9 or 10 at night, I would just sit out for a couple hours and do my studying outside, which was a nice change of scenery.
Lots of academic questions. So can you touch on how did you decide on the major, and when do you need to decide by?
I can start. So I came into Fordham undecided, but I've always, like in high school, I kind of always knew that I wanted to do a theology double major. I also thought I wanted to do an Italian minor, but in my mind, like I wanted something else in addition to that, which I didn't. I just decided on those two, but the reason I chose those was because of the core. If you're Fordham College Rose Hill, you really can, even if you are Valley, but you can really like lean into the core and like touch on all different subjects that you might not have touched on anyway, or just really lean into the things that you think you're interested in. And that's what I did. So I took obviously my Italian as my modern language, and I took the theology core classes that were all required to take, and I just realized like I love this. I love these classes more than I love any of my other classes, and I really can't imagine myself studying anything different. So I really recommend that. Just like lean into the core, and like that'll really help you make your decision. And you don't need to declare until February of your sophomore year. And you can work with your advisor in your first semester, sophomore year, to get yourself declared, and they'll help you with that.
Yeah, to go off of that, I also came in undecided, and I met a lot with my advisor, and she was great. I would say I'm interested in something, and then she would point me into the direction of an office that could help me explore that more. And like after doing that for 2 years, that's how I came to my business admin major with a concentration in consulting and social innovation.
So I came in decided as a political science major. I was interested in high school, and I was thinking about like, doing on the pre-law track, so that's kind of why I did that. But I kind of happened upon the Italian minor also from the core, because you have to take like 4 classes, and then I only had to take a couple more, and I was like, might as well just minor. But if you're not sure on what you're doing, like they said, they come in undecided, like a ton of people come in undecided, and there are so many resources out there to try to help you figure out within like, what your interests are and how that can apply to like your major and what you potentially want to do like going after college.
So I came in as an environmental science major, but I was also kind of undecided. I knew like the only thing I really wanted to do in life was like I want to be a teacher of some kind. So my end goal right now is to be a college professor. So I kind of had a lot of freedom to kind of explore, again, the core is a good way to do that. And a lot of my friends told me to go like to their political science professors, and I had really a good time in the class. So I ended up taking that last semester, and I really loved it. So that's currently the track that I'm on right now.
Are you involved in any clubs that enhance your academic curriculum, or do you try to, take on extracurriculars that are very different, or something that's like a passion project?
Yeah, I'm involved in one academic club, but that's just because I thought I might be interested in finance freshman year, but now I'm just like sticking with the club just to stick with it. But I try to do clubs that are more fun and like challenge me in a different way than academics does. So like I mentioned before, I'm on our programming board, so that's like a completely different challenge, but it still allows me to apply what I learned in the business school to the organization, because it's like a club with a ton of people and a ton of different moving parts. But yeah, like you can always, we have so many options, so if you want to take like academic clubs, like those are fun too, but I think the fun clubs are just a lot of fun, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Most of the things that I am involved in are just things like I'm interested in. And one of the main things I do, as Ramona before, is like United Student Government, and kind of one of the big things that we do on there is like write up like proposals or like initiatives that we want to work on to like help better the student body. One thing that I was working on this semester was we wanted to have a week before midterms where professors can't assign like assignments or like have due dates due, to have like kind of like a mental health like week before. So it's just like things like that. Like you notice things around campus, you're like, oh, like somebody should change that, and then you're like, maybe you could figure out how to do that.
Yeah. I also like to do more like fun clubs and stuff, just because I think that's really fun and a great way to like socialize. Sometimes like my theology classes kind of coincide to my campus ministry involvement. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but I do a bunch of things with campus ministry. So sometimes that overlaps, but nothing super like concrete. But I do have one friend who is a psych major, and she's going to be on the e-board of the psych club. So I know more like specialized majors do have a lot of clubs that coincide with them, and a lot of people in those departments like to join those clubs just to kind of gain more concrete experience that doesn't like apply so much to some of the broader humanities courses or majors.
So clubs obviously were not particularly conducive to COVID, so I had a tough time last year really finding any clubs that I was super involved in. But one of the places that I spent a lot of my time was like the community run, the RA run organizations through my dorm. So things like that where they weren't necessarily academic, but it was shared because I was in the science integrated learning community with people who shared my major. So we had a lot of the same academic interests. So like after doing whatever it was that we were doing, we'd end up like, you know, you make friends, then like you can study with those people. So kind of like one led into another for me.
I really like this question. What's it like around the holidays? Halloween, St. Patty's, Christmas, is it festive?
I love that question too. Yeah, I would say definitely yes, especially like around Christmas. They put up like lights, like they put up a wreath on the Keating, and they put up like lights everywhere. And during like all the other holidays, if you're an RA, you'll probably have like different themed programs. I know like around Halloween they do like different like spooky week, different things. I know Kat, you do Halloween.
So we have our signature week. So Halloween, we have Hollow Week. I think my favorite event is the golf cart ghost tours. So Fordham is a supernatural campus. You've got some stories to tell, so you'll learn them if you go on a ghost tour. We also have Holiday Week, where we put on a bunch of events. There's like a holiday fair, cookies. You get to like make your own snow globes, a bunch of different like fun things like that. We also have Valentine's Day week, which is fun. You can do like, we usually stuff animals. Like, I don't know, we had a ton of those in the office, like for weeks. Yeah, I think that's it. You want to say that?
Yeah, usually CAP has signature weeks around all of the holidays, all of the different holidays. And then St. Patrick's Day is usually when Fordham's on spring break, but they have a really huge presence at the New York St. Patrick's Day parade. So there's some like resources of how to like march with them or like get involved there. But usually, and I think this year that applies, like we're on spring break during that time. But all of the other ones, lots going on, particularly with CAB, but a lot of other clubs as well. They'll go ice skating or go see a show at Radio City. There is a lot of club activity around the holidays in particular. Can you talk a little bit about volunteer opportunities at Fordham and any that you've been involved with?
Yeah, I could talk about that. I know campus ministry has a lot of volunteer opportunities, as well as the Center for Community Engaged Learning. there's a group called the Pedro Grupe Volunteers that does some volunteering around in the Bronx. There's organizations, one that comes to mind is Bronx is Blooming, which does like environmental things like litter cleanup and stuff like that in the Bronx. There's also a lot of tutoring opportunities through the Center for Community Engaged Learning, or CCEL as we like to call it. Even other than that, there's some opportunities. I know I taught Sunday school last year. I did that through campus ministry, so there's a lot of opportunities there. But I know there's other places that also do volunteer stuff as well. Oh, also, sorry, I just remembered, I'm a part of another club called the Jesuit Network, which is a volunteer club. Right off campus, there's a hall called Murray Weigel Hall, which is a home for retired Jesuits, so they're older men, and we go there for pretty much every holiday or just like once a month or so, and just spend some time with them. Obviously, last year we couldn't go there in person because of COVID, but we did Zooms with them, and it's a great way to give back to the Fordham community. Because they really do love meeting us and love spending time with us, because otherwise it's just them together, so they enjoy to see a friendly face. I highly recommend getting involved with that club if you want to do some volunteer work. That's really not a big commitment at all.
Being an orientation leader was like really my first example of that, like through an on-campus association, and there's a couple off-campus ways that you can get involved with community work as well. There's a number of like soup kitchens and like cleanup organizations, but in terms of on-campus, like there's orientation assistants, leaders, and coordinators, and this was like my first year where I got to do this. I was a YMCA kid. I was part of the team leaders program. I went to YMCA summer camp, and this gives off a lot of that same vibe. There's a lot of that like community and friendship, and this was definitely like one of my favorite ways to get involved on campus. Not to promote ourselves or anything.
Great. I'm gonna ask one more question, but just for a couple of the more specific ones on here. The Pass-Fail Symposium, if you're talking about first year formation, an email should have gone out to you and your parent or guardian about how to sign up. I believe it's a Google form to register for that class. It's basically once a week for an hour and 15 minutes. And it's a Fordham 101, so there's different topics about like how to get involved, wellness, different things on diversity and inclusion, academic success, and things like that. But I will also stay after, and maybe some of the panelists, if they're available, can stay after to answer some of these specific ones. A couple commuter ones, which Alessandra can probably speak to, but there's also the commuter thing that's happening right after this in McGinley. So make sure if you're a commuter student to attend that session. But to wrap up, what do you like to do on weekends? And what is your favorite thing about Fordham?
I can start. So last year on Campus Activities Board, before I was vice president, I was the co-chair of our Weekend Activities Committee. We put on an event every single weekend of the semester, so there is always something to do. But we, in times of not COVID, we usually go throughout the city to different things. So we've gone to Knicks games, Yankees games, Broadway shows, museums, so that's always fun. We also do monthly bingo, which our prizes are amazing, AirPods, TVs, Keurigs, things like that. So I think my favorite thing to do is explore the city or go on a WAC trip, as we like to call it. And then my favorite part about Fordham would have to be the people, like all my fellow orientation leaders.
There they are. Yeah, my favorite thing to do on the weekends is also like go down to the city. Like we were talking about different ways to get down there before. Me and my friends are like to go like hang out in Central Park or like try out different restaurants, which is always really fun. And then, yeah, I mean, my favorite thing about Fordham is probably also the people, which I know is cheesy, but I feel like it really is kind of like you just really feel at home here, and like I love the campus too. It's really nice being here in the summer too because everything is in bloom. It's so beautiful. But yeah, I love it here.
Yeah, so one of the things I like to do on weekends, even though I don't live on campus, I do like to come here and me and my friends like to go to the city, try new food, try new restaurants and stuff, so that's definitely my favorite thing to do on the weekends. My favorite thing about Fordham is definitely the community. It's one of those, since it's so small but also so big, you see a new person every day, but you also see people you know every day, and I just love that. And everyone here is so passionate about Fordham and loves Fordham so much, and it's just a great place to like build friendship and build community, and it's really amazing.
So I'm actually not much of a city person. So one thing that I would do on weekends, and it's kind of unorthodox, but once I had like my kind of close-knit community of friends, I would actually get to we would drive to my hometown and like do stuff that I used to do like back home, because I have my car on campus. So it's kind of nicer to like introduce people like your way of life, and maybe like drive to their hometowns and stuff and like do all that stuff. So you do like a lot of hikes, a lot of like lake trips, things like that. So I'm not much of a city person, but my favorite part about Fordham is definitely, I love the people too, obviously, but something different is like there's a lot of support to make sure that you get from like graduate high school to like freshman year of college. I had a really like rough time because of COVID specifically, but even with like everything that was going on, like Fordham was like super helpful. My academic advisor was super helpful, where even something like changing majors was like almost nothing, it was super easy. So they definitely like the support systems to kind of get you from high school student to college student, especially for incoming freshmen like you guys. So yes, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you guys. If we can give our panelists a round of applause. Well, thank you again. Again, I'm Francesca Leite. I work in the Office for Student Involvement. If you need to find us, we're in the buildings under construction, but we're in the McGinley Center on the second floor. If you ever need to find us when you get here, and we're all really happy to serve you and welcome you to the community. We're going to stay after. I'll be standing over here, so come find us if you have some more specific questions. But thank you for your time and stay cool.